But we begin with former President Trump facing new questions over allegations that he clogged his White House commode trying to flush away classified documents. His mishandling of official records now outed in a new book written by a New York Times reporter. It's just yet another Trump tale to surface, as the National Archives has also arranged for the transfer of 15 boxes of records that the former president took with him to Mar-a-Lago after leaving the White House. That's where Congresswoman Jackie Speier comes in, as she and fellow members of the House Oversight Committee are carrying out the investigation. Congresswoman, good to see you.
Thank you. Great to be with you.
All right, so let's talk about the former president here. He is denying all of this, of course. Depending on what you discover, do you think Trump could ever face prosecution here? And what would that take?
Well, there's no question that it was intentional. Those 15 boxes had to be curated and were taken down to Mar-a-Lago. Many of those items, it appears, are now in his coffee table book that he's selling. And I think he had every intention to take those items and to probably auction them off to the highest bidder. He has violated the law. You do not flush papers down a toilet unless you have something to hide. And I think it shows intent. And he is going to be subject to the Presidential Records Act. There are fines associated with that, and actually can also entail serving time.
So what are the next steps?
So the committee is going to review with the archivists the documents that were taken. And then there will be interviews with people who observed him tearing up papers in the White House, where they had to tape them back together, and to try and determine what were some of the documents that he flushed down the toilet.
Is it possible we could ever see members of the maintenance crew brought in to testify here and talk about what they witnessed or what they were called in to do?
I don't want to go there, but I do think that.
You know, I had to ask. I witnessed.
I do think that there's a specific intent here to do those acts. This wasn't done by mistake. This was done intentionally. And he has, for decades, been skirting the law. We've seen it over and over again, whether it was his Trump University or his foundation. He always abuses the system.
All right. Economic and consumer policy is also your avenue. I'm going to hit a lot of topics with you if you don't mind. So let's talk key inflation measure here. The CPI showing prices climbing at their fastest pace, Congresswoman, in 4 decades. The Senate Minority Leader today blaming your party. Take a listen. I'll get you to respond.
The severity of this inflation was directly fueled by the reckless, far-left spending spree that every single Democrat in this chamber voted to ram through at President Biden's behest last year.
So did the trillions of dollars here in COVID relief spending contribute to these price hikes?
Well, I think if you talk to these small businesses on Main Street, it kept them alive. I think if you talk to the people that had lost their jobs, it kept food on the table. So let's put that aside. The inflation impact is happening across the globe. It's not just here in the United States. We have actually, because of the steps taken by President Biden, have seen the unemployment rate drop significantly and the greatest number of jobs created in decades. So that doesn't change the fact that people are still concerned, that gas prices are high, that the products in our grocery stores are higher. That has something to do with the supply chain. The president is doing everything he can, using every tool in his toolbox to take care of those bottlenecks. And beyond that, we've passed in the House the Competes Act, which is going to return more manufacturing to the United States. It's going to address the supply chain. It's going to address the issue with micro semiconductor chips, because the cost of vehicles has everything to do with the fact that we can't get these semiconductor chips. So he's taking the steps he can as president, independent of Congress. But let me also point out that those on the Republican side who are now pointing fingers are also not voting for the infrastructure bill, which now is law and is going to create 1 million jobs a year. And the infrastructure in this country, as you know, has been neglected for decades.
All right, let me follow up on that because we were just looking at the New York Stock Exchange there, Dow Jones Industrials in the red right now. There you see the numbers. So let's talk about what you just mentioned. The Biden administration, even with that said, is celebrating last week's jobs report, as you mentioned. Good news there, despite the Omicron surge, 467,000 jobs added. The president saying, you know, America's back to work. But you also point out, Congresswoman, there is still a major gender gap in those numbers. So, and this is something I know you're passionate about. So what's going on with women in the labor force?
So as the infrastructure bill created jobs for men, the Build Back Better Act, if we ever get the Senate to support it, will create jobs for women. There are 1.1 million women who have left the labor force since COVID. And they've left for the most part because of childcare needs. And when you've seen a drop in the number of childcare slots, the cost of childcare going up, you can see why so many families are staying home. And we need more women in the workplace. This is the lowest participation of women in the workforce since the mid-90s. And until we can fix the childcare problem, which is fixed with Build Back Better, because there's 20 million more children that will have childcare because of that particular act. It means that no more than 7% of your salary is going to go to childcare. And it also provides universal pre-K, which means another 8 million children will be in pre-K. And we're not doing something that hasn't already been done around the world. We're not, creating a new mindset. Countries like France have had parental leave since 1900s, and childcare, universal childcare, has been around for 40 to 50 years in Europe.
Well, speaking of equity and inclusion, I've got to ask you about this. You know, you're a fierce advocate for LGBTQ communities. Whew, I always have to make sure I get all the letters in there. What do you think of this proposed bill that critics are calling the Don't Say Gay bill in Florida that would limit conversations in the classroom about sexuality and gender? President Biden has come forward saying, don't be hateful. He's playing off the Don't Say Gay mantra that critics are putting out there. But what do you think about this? And do you think this is something that should even be on the table as we go into 2022? And we've been talking so much about equality, not only about sexuality, but for women and minorities. I mean, it's a national conversation. It has been.
I think many of these proposals are fabricated. They're political talking points that some of my colleagues on the other side want to use. And I would say that, think about the 6 or 7-year-old child who now identifies as being gay, who recognizes his sexual orientation as different. If somehow he is made to feel that he is unwanted or different, that's going to be a very painful process for the rest of that person's life. And we've learned from the past. Let's not recreate the mistakes of the past. Let's embrace our diversity. That's what keeps this country so strong, because we are diverse in so many ways.
And that's how we should feel when we get up and go to school every day as well. Representative Jackie Speier, always good to see you. Appreciate the conversation.
Great to be with you.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.